All right, everyone, it is 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, we just want to thank you so much for being here, for investing in yourself, and just coming to learn the ins and outs of what it takes to be a first-time home buyer. So we're going to start you off with a little video here.
I was 21 years old when I purchased my first home.
I was at college renting an apartment and was charged for all kinds of things that I thought were unfair as a tenant.
I mean, one of the reasons we decided that we wanted to buy a home was we wanted to start earning, to start winning.
In my mind, I was thinking, gosh, I can't pay all this rent. It's just going nowhere.
I looked at my finances and my situation, and I just figured, well, I don't want my money to work for someone else. I want my money to work for me.
So I started buying up homes. As soon as I could get enough money to have another down payment, I would rent out the first house and I would go purchase another home.
We all have bank accounts that we store our money in, and we're trying to grow that through our income, making 0.001% while we save it. Well, the housing market is the same thing. It's just a different type of bank account. You're putting your money into an asset and you're allowing it to grow. So instead of making 0.001%, a lot of people in the last 10 years made 200 to 300%.
There's no reward without some risk, right? And the hardest things I've done in life have given me the greatest reward in my life. So it's a scary thing, but the more I got into real estate, the more I realized it's a slow, steady, great investment that you can rely on.
We bought at the peak of the market, and then there was a recession. And we still are building wealth off of it. So if somebody had said, don't buy now, don't buy now, don't buy now, there's always gonna be somebody who's gonna say, don't buy now, and then you're gonna be kind of left behind when you could have been building equity.
Getting over that fear of, am I ready, am I not ready? You are ready. And if you don't think you're ready, talk to the people who will tell you what to do so you can get ready.
I never dreamed that you could invest in real estate and I could have multiple homes that pay me a certain amount every month of cash flow that I can then turn around and pay my bills. That's just been what we call the American dream.
There's never the perfect time to buy a home. The time is now. You gotta figure it out because you have two options. It's either you're paying rent and helping somebody else live that American dream and pay their mortgage, or you're doing it for yourself.
All right, guys, tonight we are going to be talking about the American dream. But to kick us off, we want to do some introductions. My name is Makenzie Bush. I am a real estate agent. I started my career in the Phoenix Metro. So everyone that you just saw talking about home buying, those are my team members in the Phoenix Metro. And this year I actually decided to expand into my roots. And so now I'm servicing Southern Nevada. So Las Vegas area and other surrounding small towns. And we'll pass the baton over to Dakota.
What's going on, guys? My name is Dakota Howard. I'm actually a mortgage broker with Barrett Financial, but specifically with the Howard team, guys. So just hearing that, yes, we are a family branch. You know, that means a lot of communication and a lot of control. So we'll make sure you know what's going on and getting educated along the way. Guys, I've been in the industry just a little over 5 years. Absolutely love it. We help all kinds of families, but for sure, one of my specialties are first-time home buyers. Reason for it, my wife and I recently gone through it, so I know kind of where you guys are at, how you're feeling, maybe that little fear of unknown. But that's why I'm here. I want to help. So you guys, my goal with every family I help is to, one, make the process fun, two, make it understandable so you know what's going on every step of the way. But last but not least is educational, so you walk away with something. But I am so excited to be here and to teach kind of on the lending side. So Kenzie, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited, guys. This is something that we're passionate about. Like Dakota said, he's got a lot of experience working with first-time buyers. It's something that I'm excited about as well, just because this is the decision that propels you forward into building wealth in real estate, or just living that American dream, right? Being able to pay down your own mortgage instead of paying your landlord, because then they're just making wealth off of you, right? So I'm going to start with a little bit of reflection. I want to talk about what is stopping you from being a homeowner. So just think about that for a minute. I know some of you are in college. Logistically, doesn't make sense for some of you right now. Just think about that for a second. So as Dakota and I have met with buyers over the years, what we've kind of discovered is that it boils down to two major reasons, right? And one of those is fear. Fear of the market. What are interest rates going to do? Is the market going to crash? Can I take on this new big responsibility, right? Can I keep a good enough job that's going to propel me forward into being able to pay my mortgage payments? And the other is just a lack of understanding. And so we found that as buyers have been able to educate themselves on different market factors and principles, and just what a benefit this is for you and what this process looks like, it's demystified a lot of that process and taken away a lot of those fears that naturally come with a big investment and a big decision. And so our goal tonight is just to chat a little bit more about how we can demystify that process, the tools that you guys can have in your toolbox, so that when you are emotionally and logistically ready to become a homeowner, you've got the finances to back you up as well.
Love it.
So that being said, let's talk a little bit about the market. Some of you maybe have not heard so much about what's going on in the market. Others may have friends and family who are really chatty about this. You may watch the news sometimes about the market. Right now, we are in a high interest rate market. And there's a lot of buyers who are putting the brakes on because they're scared of interest rates. And so we want to give you just a couple of tools essentially that you can use to determine when the right market is for you to buy in. Because the right market, it's not always the right market for you, right? We're not saying that you need to buy a home right now, but we do want you to be able to determine when that decision is going to be right for you and not have it be fear-based. And so I want to touch a little bit first on supply and demand and why that's driving our real estate market. In 2008, as many of you may know, we had a housing market crash. And because of that, a lot of builders put the brakes on building new properties. You know, if the current inventory wasn't selling, they're not going to be building a bunch of new homes that are then going to be sitting vacant and they're not going to be making revenue off of. So for about 4 years, we had builders just kind of halting that process. We're starting to see the effects of that now. So we've got an exponentially growing population. Housing is a basic necessity. And so with that 4 years of missing inventory, we're starting to see multiple buyers competing for one product, right? Instead of in the past, 1 or 2 buyers competing for one home, now we're seeing 10 to 15 buyers all competing for the same home just because we're lacking in inventory. Now, interest rates and prices is also going to affect our market. And just the relationship between those two. And you guys, I want you to think of this as kind of a pulley system. So when interest rates are high, prices are staying stagnant. Sometimes they go down a little bit. They can go up a little bit, but for the most part, a high interest rate is kind of controlling our prices just from any major movements. Now, when interest rates come down, because of our lack of supply, we start to see prices rise. And so you may have heard a lot about the COVID boom, which is when rates came down really low and all of these buyers flooded the market. That's, you know, we might not see it as bad as we did during COVID, but just keep in mind when those rates do come down, that's when the competition enters. And so don't be afraid. If you've been thinking of buying now, don't be afraid just because of the interest rates. And just know that there are options to getting a lower than market interest rate, despite them being so high across the board. And then the last thing I want to touch on is that real estate is an appreciating asset. So we're going to flip over here to this next chart. So this line represents the median sales price of homes in the US since the 60s. And as you'll see, this has been on an upward trajectory since we've been keeping track, right? We'll see the 2008 crash was right here, but look what happened. Even though prices came down a few years, by 2015, they were already higher than they were beforehand. So is there a bad time to buy? There's a right time for you to buy. Okay. But there's not necessarily a bad time to buy if we're planning on holding on to real estate, riding out those waves and those cycles, because historically prices have always recovered. And you'll notice here, right here is our interest rate peak. So you'll notice that prices have come down, but in many cities, this has already started to go back up. So Phoenix Metro is one of them. Vegas hasn't fully recovered, but it's headed in that direction. So just know they prices get better. Things always get better if we're looking at the historical trends.
100%, because I can't agree more. Guys, all the time, you know, I get from friends, family, just everybody's, hey, Dakota, is it the right time to buy? So this is really hard, you know, it's hard to just say yes or no because everyone's situation is different. But like as Makenzie said, I'm kind of biased. Is right. I always want to see you own a house to start gaining equity, start investing in yourself, right? So here is, it's really cliche, but here's like perfect example is marrying the house because we love it, right? And then dating the rate because that rate's not going to be there forever. So you guys, if we look from, we're going to go left to right, right? So if we were to buy a house today, so I'm just using a rate of 7.875. And again, rates are really going to be dependent on the person, right? Your credit, what situation, all that stuff. But here's kind of just a ballpark for today, going off a first-time home buyer program. So 3% down, a rate of 7.875 on a $300,000 purchase, the principal and interest is roughly going to be $2,109 a month. Okay. So again, everyone's situation is different. We want you to be comfortable getting into a house, but a lot of times we go, hey, Dakota, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait for rates. Totally fine, right? I'm here for you, but let's have a game plan. But what happens if we wait? Makenzie just touched on it. Supply and demand is you're not going to be the only one. Everybody else is saying, hey, I'm waiting for rates. So it's going to flood in some buyers. It's going to drive our demand. Hopefully our supply stays the same. But when that happens, it brings in more competition. So let's just say that same house you get today for $300,000 probably ends up going for $335,000 from multiple offers, kind of getting into that, you know, little bit of bidding war, more competitiveness. So what's great. So we get into the house and now we waited for rates. So we get 6.25. So that principal and interest, yeah, our purchase price is higher, but since our rate is lower, our purchase principal and interest will be $2,000 a month. So we save $110, which is fantastic. And we get on our place. But here's what I call best of both worlds, or, you know, two birds, one stone, is what's great is let's just say we ended up buying and now we're refining when rates come down. What's so cool is we're going to have a lower loan amount, right? So a lower loan balance, but now we're going to drop that rate. So what you'll see is we're going to have a lower loan. So we're not buying us higher, but we get that 6.25. So our principal and interest will literally drop to $1,791. So we're about $318 less a month compared to $110. But what's also great about this, you guys got to remember, is now you have that difference, right? People are going to be still going out, you know, over asking on these houses. So you're going to have more equity in your home. It's going to appreciate a little bit faster. So you get that. So of course we're seeing $318 less a month, but it could potentially be more with having more loan to value, your mortgage insurance and things like that can go. So it could, you know, it could even go up to $340, $350 less a month in this scenario. So personally, again, everyone's situation is different, but if you are comfortable with the payment, jumping in now, I think is a great spot. Great decision.
So, all right. No questions yet. Okay. We're just going to keep moving right along. If they come up, throw them in the chat and we'll either answer them as we go or we'll answer them at the end. So this is the home buying timeline. This is kind of everything you need to know from start to finish. And what we're going to be focusing on throughout this timeline is your responsibility in it. Because when it comes down to it, once we start this home buying process, I'm going to be there to walk you through things, to hold your hand. So that's just where we're going to spend a lot of our time.
Perfect. So yeah, kind of when we jump into, guys, so anytime, right, when I go to help someone into a house, we always talk about budget, right? And you got to remember, everyone's budget's going to be different. So everyone's story is different. Some people may make more money than others, but the biggest thing is that, and the most important thing in the day, is sitting down and seeing where you guys are going to be comfortable. So one thing I always say, on our call, or even when we get into a call later, is where do you guys want to be? So setting that budget is super important. Of course, I'm going to show you what you max qualify for, because everyone wants to know that, and it's fun. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm going to try to crunch numbers and put a game plan together around that budget, so that we're knowing where we want to look, and also not working our tails off to live, right? So that's important. Along with the budget on the other side, guys, again, everyone's situation is different. There are all kinds of awesome programs out there. First time home buyer, which you can put as little as 3% down, or there's others that, if you're a veteran, all kinds of stuff is 0% down. So along with setting your budget, is I want to determine how much you want to save. So later we'll talk, we'll get on a pre-qualification call, which will explain what that is. But on that, I always ask, A, where do you want to be? But 2 is, how much do you guys have saved up, and what are we comfortable with using? So when we get ready to start talking, we're going to be talking for sure about budget. All right. So along with budget is getting pre-qualified, right? So that's meeting with the lender, that's meeting with myself. And in fancy terms, what is getting pre-qualified is seeing how much home you qualify for. So when we break down the pre-qualification process, it is CIA, which we'll talk about, but I kind of want to back up and talk about why it's important. One is, Makenzie may be able to talk about this too, is if you go to purchase a home, most realtors, they're not going to take you out until you are pre-qualified, because one, they want to make sure you're ready to rock and roll, you have the golden ticket to make an offer, and to make sure you're serious. But for me, why I think it's more important is because it's going to help. One is we're going to have your budget, so we're going to make sure you're looking at homes where you want to be within, so you're not shopping too high or too low, and like I say, to be daydreaming. So that's one big thing. So now when we talk about actually getting pre-qualified, it's 3 big factors, and that's CIA. So the first is going to be credit. So depending on your credit score, like we talked about before, is one, it's going to tell us which loan program we're going to go with, right? Which direction. But your credit score also kind of plays a role in interest rate. Along with credit is going to be your liabilities, and right, that's anything that's going to pull up on a credit report, right? So auto loans, student loans, personal loans, that kind of stuff. The second is going to be income, right? We're going to talk about income. Majority of the time you need you need a job to purchase a home. So we're going to talk about how are you paid? Are you hourly? Are you salary? Mark, I know you talked about that as being self-employed or another way. So getting with me, anyone on my team, is being proactive and seeing where your income's at. And last but not least is going to be assets, right? So for that down payment and closing costs or whatever it is, we do need to verify assets of where they're coming from, right? So is that money we saved up? Is that coming from, which we're coming into that kind of season, is tax return? It could be money from a gift, and from family members, relatives, things like that. But like I said, so that's what we look at when you are getting pre-qualified. But truly, what does it look like? Like, what are the steps to getting pre-qualified? So one is, like I said, I am so huge on building a game plan. So it normally starts with about a 10 or 15-minute call, talking about your goals specific to you. What are you guys trying to obtain? And then from there is actually doing an application. So it takes about 10, 15 minutes, getting, more in depth of where you live, how long you've been at your job, that kind of stuff. And then after that, we collect some documents. And then from there is I can actually put a full game plan together, showing numbers and all that fun stuff. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Sorry guys, I got 2 screens trying to get mine up too. So here we are. So now going into this, you guys, this is one of my favorite things is DTI, debt to income ratio. So this in a gist is going to tell you what you max qualify for. But, we just talked about CIA, right? Credit, income, assets. Those 3 factors are really important because it allows us to calculate your DTI. So in a gist, DTI ratio is, what the banks and the lenders, everyone use to see where you qualify. And in a gist, they don't want your monthly payment to be more than 45% of your gross monthly income. which 100% makes sense. And I agree with it because, again, right, we don't want you working your tail off to live. So they kind of make that factor. 45% is kind of on the conservative side. So with DTI, guys, I put this scenario together because if you want to end up doing it at home and just, you're curious and be like, where are we kind of sitting, where we can max qualify, here's going to be a way you can do it yourself. Or two, and since, Mark, if your situation might be different, and you guys have questions, I would love to get on the phone and actually do your DTI for you as well. But in a gist, this is how it kind of works. So let's just say, I'm salaried at $50,000 and my significant other is, salaried at $35,000. So total, our household for the year is $85,000. So we're doing well. But we have to, right, with DTI is broken over gross monthly income. So we divide that by 12. So as a household, we're almost making $7,100 a month, right there, about $7,083 a month. So that's the number we're getting at, times by 45%. So when we do that, that comes out to $3,187. So let's just say in this scenario, this couple has zero debt. They could literally qualify for a home almost up to $3,200 if they wanted, right? That's a lot of home, but that's where they could be. However, I want to show with DTI, we do have to subtract out any monthly debts you personally have, right? So in this case, I just kind of ballpark it. Let's just say they have a car for $300 a month. They have student loans, minimum payment of $100 and credit cards of $100. So $500 in liabilities. We take that out. Now what's left over is $2,687. They could qualify for a house. So that would be their max qualification. In this case, let's just say they're like, Dakota, I don't want to be over $2,400. They're going to be sitting in a good spot because they, they qualify for more home than if they wanted, which is good. So what does that kind of lead into DTI wise, guys? So I know in the chat we were touching on it, and we're all in different different states, different areas. But I wanted to, being in different states, different areas is entry level home is going to be a different price point. So right here is I wanted to show you estimated monthly payments. Again, it's going to be dependent on your scenario and all that stuff. But here's the $300,000 home, $350,000 and $400,000 payment wise. So what you guys will see on that $300,000 home. So earlier we talked in that scenario, marrying the house, dating the rate, was just the principal and interest. So if you see right here, the principal and interest would still match on that other screen, but it's $2,109. Along with your, with your mortgage is going to be home insurance. So that's roughly $100. Then we're going to have property tax, right? Now, depending on your county, your city, where you're at, there's going to be property tax. So I used about $175, and then mortgage insurance of $73. So today, rough estimate of $300,000 home would be about $2,457. Okay. Here is a little fun fact I love telling everybody is every $10,000 you go up or down in purchase price will affect the monthly payment by $75. So how you can kind of just play with it right here, right, is that now going over the middle payment, $350, we're going up $50,000, right? So we'd go 5 times $75 is $375. So what you'll see that's going to increase is that first mortgage. So that's principal and interest. So that's going up to $2,461. So that's going to be affected because our loan amount's going up. Home insurance should still be about the same of $100. Property tax should still be roughly $175. And then mortgage insurance will go up a little bit because that's dependent off the loan amount as well. So you see now your total monthly payment is about $2,821. So it's almost $375 difference. It's actually a little bit less. So it's good on a conservative side. If you're playing around on any, home search apps, you can kind of see what you're looking at. Last but not least is good old 400. And what you'll see is that principal and interest is going to go up again to $2,813. Home insurance about $100. Property tax about $175. And MI will go up here to $97. So you're going to be right there about $3,185 on a $400,000 home. The one thing I wanted to really touch on, guys, again, this is all ballpark. And again, is if you let's just say you want to stay at a certain budget, but you want to get to a higher purchase price, there are always other things we can do, right? And that's why I want to consult and put a game plan together, because we can look at putting more money down. There's buying down the rate. There's all kinds of stuff that we can go into it. So at the end of the day is my goal is always to just help you guys achieve your family goals. So if that's staying at a monthly payment or getting to a purchase price, I'm always going to give you an option on how to make it happen. And that's kind of payment wise right there.
And Dakota, will you explain really quick just what PITI means? Because we've been talking a lot about principal and interest.
Perfect, guys. And that was my bad. I meant to bring that at the beginning. So check it out. So before we talked about principal and interest, so an actual mortgage payment is PITI, right? So it's going to be kind of 4 factors. So the PI is going to be the principal and interest on the loan. The T is going to be the property tax on wherever you're at. The I is going to be your home insurance, and the last I is going to be your mortgage insurance. So all those together is going to be your full mortgage payment of PITI. One little fun fact is we're already talking about, but good old mortgage insurance. You guys have probably heard, the myth of, hey, you need 20% down to get into a house. The reason they say that is to avoid mortgage insurance. So a lot of us don't have, $80,000 to $100,000 laying around. So that's why we have a little bit of mortgage insurance. But once you do hit that, we talked about properties appreciating, going up in value. Once you hit that MI will drop off and lower your monthly payment later down the road. Okay, last but not least is talking about kind of just additional expenses. So we talked about is all these awesome, first-time home buyer programs, all this stuff is, your minimum payment can roughly be about 3%. There are, like I said, there are some niche things. If you are a veteran, it could be 0. There's some rural areas where it could be a 0% down. But in a gist is 1, prepping for your down payment, but 2 are also closing costs when it comes to buying a house. So those 2 together is also known as total cash to close. So if we were on the phone, I'll be like, hey, I want you guys to be prepped for X. That's gonna be your down payment and closing costs. So closing costs, right? You guys are like, what are these? In a gist is kind of anybody helping out in the transaction, right? So there's gonna be a title company, and they do all the fun title work. They hold the money. They do all that stuff to make sure you're ready to rock and roll, and then that loan's gonna go in your name. There's gonna be us as a lender building the loan, processing, doing all that, and sometimes, occasionally, it can be a little bit of a realtor fee. And last but not least, are prepaid. So in a gist, your closing costs are going to roughly be about 2.5% to 3.5%, depending where you're at, off your purchase price. So that's all those wrapped together. So giving you a little scenario, let's just say back to that $300,000, 2.5% would be $7,500. So on top of your down payment, we would want you guys to prep for $7,500 for your total cash to close.
Awesome. And then of course, you'll see there's just a few other things. So you're going to need to get an appraisal done on the property. We'll talk about that a little down the road, but that'll be $400 to $600. A home inspection, $400 to $600. The home warranty, typically we ask the seller to pay for that. If they refuse to pay for that, it's optional for the buyer. Of course, I do recommend you get a home warranty at least your first year. If your appliances were to break, sometimes they cover your HVAC system. So that home warranty just helps with the repairs. It's a company that comes in and helps with that. And then any miscellaneous fees. That might be something like a termite inspection. I know termites sound scary. They're very common for our Arizona buyers, not anything to be majorly afraid of, but sometimes things of that nature have an additional fee. There will be different environmental factors in each of your cities that you may want an additional test for. So plan for anywhere, I'd say $1,000 on the safe side. I don't think it's going to be that much, but you just never know some of these additional expenses that come up. And if you don't use it, then you get to keep that $1,000 in your pocket.
Furniture money.
Yes, furniture money, exactly. Yeah, save a budget for that too, you guys. We're just talking about the home expense part, not the fun part. Awesome. So once you meet with a lender, like Dakota said, the pre-qualification is kind of your golden ticket to get the ball rolling. And so we'll get you set up on a home search. This is where we enter in all of your criteria, how many bedrooms you want, where you want to live, and things of that nature. And what I really want to touch on here is social media has kind of given us a false expectation of what a first-time homebuyer house really looks like. We see all of these influencers with the nice home, the beautiful aesthetic. And the reality is $300,000 does not get you what it used to, even 5 years ago. And so what I want to prep you guys for is to utilize real estate as a stacking effect. And so what that means is I want you to buy the smallest home that you can feel comfortable in. And as you're paying off your mortgage, all of that equity in the home, you get to save and keep for the down payment on your next home. But also by not maxing out your budget, you can save for your down payment in your normal budgeting as well. So the combination of selling your first home with the money that you've saved up for your second down payment will propel you forward and allow you to afford more home down the line. And of course, we hope that you're increasing in salary, yada, yada, because that just means you're doing well in your work life. Some other ideas, if you do need a bigger home for your family situation, buying on the outskirts will always give you more home for your dollar. Being okay with a little bit of a fixer-upper, things of that nature, will just help you to get a better price as well. And get comfortable with the idea of buying a condo or a townhouse. So condo is kind of like an apartment. A townhouse is a mix between your normal single family and a condo. But those tend to run on the cheaper side, and they're a great launching point. And then we get to the really fun part, which is walking through homes, right? We do all the work to get to this point. And so we're just walking through, of course, finding a home that you feel comfortable writing an offer on that meets your needs. One thing I want to point out here, no home is going to be absolutely perfect. If it checks all of the major boxes, that's what's going to be most important. So things like location, you can't change your location. So that would be one of the key things to look for. And then also floor plan can be hard to manipulate. So if the floor plan really doesn't work for you, that's one thing where, you can be a little bit more picky and choosy. But cosmetic stuff, you guys, all of that can be changed. So just keep an open mind because truly nothing's going to check those boxes. Also with showings, of course, this is the time when if we find something that we like, we get to write an offer. And we have so many options and so much control and ways that we can manipulate the interest rate. So this would be the time where we can ask the buyer or the seller to buy down your interest rate. We can ask for them to pay for some of your closing costs if you don't want to come out of pocket that much. This is our time to be able to do that. And so that's why, again, I said at the beginning, there's a lot of opportunity in this market because you are not going to get a deal in a low interest rate market with the amount of demand that we have, the pent up demand that we have. There was one more thing. Go ahead. I remember what else I wanted to say.
So sorry. No, I love Makenzie, what you're saying on this, because this is also the time, guys, is where, if there's a house you like, Makenzie and I are going to get together and teamwork it, right? So it's like, what is important to you guys, where we're trying to be, right? When it goes back to that budget, I can crunch numbers on my side and be like, hey, if possible, if we can get X amount for seller concession, we can do this to the rate, we can get it more in line. This is where it's a big team aspect, not just from us two, but with you guys as well, to see, what's truly important to you and what we can make happen.
Yeah, thank you. I remembered what I was going to say while you're sharing that. So I just wanted to share an example of a buyer of mine. So I had a buyer that bought in the low interest rate market, June of 2022. So their interest rate was 5.5%. It took us 5 months to get them into a property because of the competition. We were offering a lot of cash over asking price to secure the home. And we wrote 18 offers before we got them into a home. So they got the low interest rate, but it took a lot of work, a lot of persistence to be able to get them locked into that home. We just closed on their second home this month. And this time around, their interest rate is 7.6%. So significantly higher. But the first home that we wrote an offer on got accepted, and we got a $15,000 price reduction. And so I asked them, I was like, okay, interest rates are what scares buyers a lot of the times. So what market do you guys prefer to buy in? And they said, we would take the high interest rate market all day long because it wasn't as emotionally taxing. They had some more choice in the home that they wanted to buy, and they got a deal, which is always exciting. And there's options, like we said, when rates do come back down, because historically they always have, when rates do come back down, you'll have the opportunity to refinance, or we can manipulate that rate during the offer writing process.
So cool.
So once our offer gets accepted, what does that mean? So we enter into what's called the escrow period. And this is typically a 30-day period. And all of these things that you see in the box are what's going to be occurring. You'll deposit your earnest money, which is kind of like a security deposit, but for home buying. And this is typically 1% of the purchase price. It is not an additional 1% that you need to come up with. This 1% is applied to your down payment. You'll have your 10-day inspection period, which is where a licensed inspector will come in. They'll look at the structural integrity of the house. They'll look for any like potential safety hazards, and just look at the overall state of the home. And then they'll give you a report, and you can decide if there's any deal breakers on that report. And you have the opportunity to move forward or not based on that. We can ask the seller for repairs too, which is really cool. You'll have an appraisal done, which is where an appraiser comes in and they determine the actual market value of the home according to the comparable properties in the area. So if you're buying a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home that's 1,500 square feet, they're going to look at all of those the properties with similar criteria within a mile or two, to determine if what you're buying the house for is the actual market value. And if let's say that you were buying the house for $500,000 and it appraised for $450,000, you'd actually have the opportunity to go back to the seller and say, hey, you actually overpriced this and I'm only willing to pay market value, which is $450,000. Before y'all get excited, that doesn't happen very often. Real estate agents are fairly competent at, I shouldn't say fairly competent, they're very good at pricing the home where it needs to be. But just know that's kind of what's going on in the appraisal. And then of course, financing. Dakota needs time. He needs those days to get your loan together. He's going to be coordinating paperwork with you back and forth and getting everything that he needs in order to get that loan done within that time period.
Perfect.
Oh, and one more thing I actually want to say also about the timeline. So like I said, this is a 30-day, you need to plan for 30 days for the home to be in the closing process. The home search process can take 1 to 2 months. If the market's really crazy, it can take a little bit longer than that. So in this kind of market, if you were wanting to buy in January, I would have told you to get started early October. That doesn't mean that you couldn't still make it happen. Just know you'd have to shop a little bit quicker because you'll need those 30 days for the closing period. And that can be changed a little bit, but not too much, because all of these things need to happen within that timeline. Okay, and then we get to closing day. Closing day is a little deceiving. It's kind of more like closing days. You're going to sign some paperwork, and that's probably not going to happen on the actual closing day. It'll happen a few days in advance. But what's important to remember about closing day is you're getting your keys late in the afternoon. The home's not yours until later in the afternoon when it's been recorded with the county that you're the new owner. So don't plan cleaners for this day. Don't plan to move all your stuff in on this day, or your movers are going to be sitting outside of the house all morning until the home's officially yours. The one thing that you will want to do is make sure that all of your utilities are set to transfer on closing day, because sometimes it takes 2 to 3 days for the company to actually get out there and switch over power and water into your name. And you don't want to go without power and water if you're moving into the home right out of the gate. Oops. All right. And that's the home buying process in a wrap, you guys. Kind of the nutshell version. But what are your next steps? Because we've gotten all this information. And like I said, even if you're 3 to 5 years out, you can start to be thinking about how you can prepare for that in the future. And the more prepared you are, the better off it's going to be for you. So our consultations are free. You can meet with me or Dakota, or you can meet with both of us, one-on-one together, whatever you guys want. We are here at your disposal. because we're passionate about this process. We're passionate about people getting excited and starting to build something for themselves. So connect with us. I've got our Instagrams down below. I do a lot of educating on Instagram. So if you ever have questions about certain things, you can DM them to me. I'll make a reel about it, or I'll answer your question via DM too. But a lot of times I already have content that kind of answers those questions.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that, yeah, like I said, Makenzie, I love it, guys. And like I said, a consultation is free, and going back to it, is getting pre-qualified is free. So like I said, if you are literally 3 to 5 years out, that is totally fine. But like, let us give the reason, why are you waiting? What do we need to be getting after? Because I want you to shoot towards something instead of just, hey, I'm waiting, shooting in the dark, right? So getting with us, being proactive is awesome. Even if if it is 3 years, we know we can touch base yearly and be like, how's it going? Where are we at? And like I said, just love helping people make homeownership become reality. I just love it.
Hey guys, it's question time. We'll do questions and then we'll do the giveaway. So I'm going to exit out of this so that I can actually see the chat. How do I do this? Oh, maybe I did. Can you guys still, did my screen stop sharing?
No, screen stop sharing. Yep.
Okay, cool. So you can unmute or throw it in the chat. Looks like one has a question. What are the differences for new construction loans and homes that are already built?
Awesome. So one great question. So when it comes into this, so what's fun is when you say new construction, there's kind of 2 ways about it, right? It's new construction. We could talk about big builders, right? Lennar. I'm trying to think of some like KV Home, stuff like that. What's great is the lending on that's going to be identical, because with the process the same, they're doing the build, so there's no expense out of your pocket. So it's going to be the same as a resale. Or however, if you are like, hey, I want to buy land and then I want to build it myself and stuff like that, it's a little more niche and specific. So, the down requirements are normally a little bit higher. They want to vet out the builder, stuff like that. So both are doable. It just really depends on that aspect.
And one thing that I'll add in, I'm glad that you brought this up, Juan, is right now, because interest rates are so high, if you're okay with living on the outskirts and you want a new home, a lot of builders have great incentives for you. They've got a locked in lower interest rate, and a lot of them are giving closing cost incentives as well. So again, that more affordable range, new build homes are going to be more on the outskirts of town. But if that's something that you're interested in, let's chat, because most of the builders that I've talked to over the past couple months are offering those incentives.
Yeah. And it's crazy though. The incentives they are giving guys are awesome, in a sense of, like, personally, like, I would love to help you, but like, I can't even touch it. So their incentives are awesome, but it just helps you. Again, if we talk about total cash close, it hopefully gets down to, like, you guys are literally just coming with your down payment at times. So those are great options.
Okay, Isai. I do have some questions, but to begin with, I live in the eastern side of the country, mostly in the Midwest. Contacts in the area? Absolutely, we have contacts. Dakota's licensed in a ton of states. I have partnerships in a ton of states. So please, any of you that are coming from out of state, we are very well connected with different lenders, different agents across the country. We can help you interview, and we can get you set up with our partnerships.
100%. And again, going to that, we're going to make sure, like, you can interview and make sure you like them and it's a good fit along with that. So yeah. Partnership. And then me personally, like, I'm licensed in 26 states. So Midwest, actually a lot of the states, I got friends and family out there. So we'll definitely connect on that.
If you have other questions, Isai, you can throw them in the chat too. Ezra, how does buying down the interest rates work? I'll let you.
Great. Yeah. So 2 ways, as a great question. So guys, there are two ways about it. So when we talk, which is really popular right now, if I was buying a house, I would go for it. If the seller pays for it, are called temporary rate buy downs. And basically what that is the seller is going to, they call them a 3-2-1 buy down, a 2-1 buy down, a 1-1. And what that means is the seller is going to pay that much for your interest rate to be lower. So if it's 2-1 buy down, the first year they're going to pay for your interest rate to be 2% less. So if we locked you in today at 7.5, that first year, your interest rate will be 5.5. Second year is going to be 1% less, so it's going to be 6.5. And hopefully why the temporary buy downs are so cool is in that time is hopefully you can refinance, market comes down, you can refinance and take advantage of it. If not, worst case, the third year and the rest of the term, you'll go to that 7.5. But historically, as rates go, you should be able to refi. Second option is just say the seller doesn't help out as much, is you can actually what we call discount points. So you can just pay. So if the rate is 7.5, we can see how much it'll cost to buy down to 7.25 to 7%. If you guys, if monthly payment is driving you, we can see how much that costs. But again, some people will be like, well, why don't I just buy from 7.5 to 6%? It costs a lot of money. So we wouldn't do that because there's going to be a break-even point where I want to be like, hey, it's going to cost you $3,200 and you'll break even in 18 months. I'd be like, not a bad idea. Hopefully you can refi in that time so you're not out the money. So I hope that makes sense. If not, we could dive more in depth on that as well.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add, of course, we can't predict rates. And so we're using terminology like historically rates come down, after a recession, rates have always come down. Know that if you're doing something like a 2-1 buy down, you are taking a bit of a gamble to be able to refinance. But historically, the chances are really good because rates don't tend to stay high forever. So just know that that's a factor. And Ben, next question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dakota.
Oh, and just going back into that is, even though we're going to have a 2-1 buy down, it's staying in that comfort zone, right? Because in the back end, worst case, if it's going to jump back up, you're good with it. That's 100%.
So next question rolls right into that, is a great follow-up. How easy is it to refinance a loan once interest rates drop?
Yeah, solid question, Ben. It's let me tell you, this is easier than buying a house, first off. So buying a house, right, where there's a little more preparation, all that stuff. But it's the same rules apply, right? We're going to go off DTI, we'll recollect documents, all that stuff. But when we refinance, most of the time it's just a rate and term. So meaning you're either changing the rate or the term of the loan, so meaning the length. So it's super simple. There are a little bit of cost to it. Again, for closing costs, so lender, title, stuff like that, a lot less than when you purchase. And what's cool about it is those costs, if you can come to the table with it, or we have it rolled into your new loan so that you don't have to come out of pocket with it.
Okay, Isai, fantastic. We'd love to connect you with them too. So I'll answer the second half of this, but it says, what if we don't want to buy our first home for ourselves, but as an investment? How do you monitor an investment property when you are out of state? First of all, Isai, we have plans to do a first time investor seminar within the coming months. That'd be a great one for you to tune into. Just know that there are property management companies that will charge a flat fee and they'll do all of the management for you. They'll do tenant placement. They'll make sure that, just that your property, everything is running smoothly with your property. My brokerage in Phoenix actually runs a full service property management company as well. And we'll be able to get you referred to some property management companies too.
Yeah. So yeah, piggybacking off that, a lot of my investors, myself, if they are buying for a property out of state, they do have a management company. And the reason for it is, they might not cash flow as much now, but they have eyes on the property. So, they're not having to fly out and go wherever it is or drive. So property management, great connections with Makenzie. That's going to be solid for sure.
Yeah. And then the first half of that, Dakota, if you want to touch on that, what if we don't want to buy our first home for ourselves, but as an investment? Do you want to speak a little bit as to just the difference in down payment and stuff?
100%. So going, like, guys, first time home buyer, or even in that sense, is a primary residence. So to be considered a primary residence is that you are going to occupy it for 12 months, at least 12 months. So what's the benefit of going primary is normally the least amount out of your pocket, and you're going to have the most attractive rate because you're living in it. So first time home buyer can be a little 3% down, if not 5, 10, whatever you're going to go with. Now for the investment thing, totally fine, right? You don't have to own a house to just buy an investment, but when it comes to an investment property, minimum down on it is going to be 20%. So it's a bigger chunk out of pocket. but what's nice is with, again, now if we talk about DTI, again, this will be another video, but what's cool about investment property is you can count average rents on the property and other aspects like this to help along with that.
Okay. Juan, if we wanted to buy an apartment style building, how many units could I buy without being considered a commercial building? Oh, oops.
Good.
Do you know that, Dakota? I don't know that off the top of my head because I don't do commercial stuff.
So, yeah, so apartment's gonna want it to be a little trickier, but in a sense, is more, if we just talk about lending in general, is to be considered residential can't be more than 4 units. So what you're gonna see, right, so a lot of people, unfortunately, you won't see like an apartment, but what you'll see is duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes that you can buy. So it won't be apartment style. If you're like, hey man, I love this this apartment that has 12 units, it's perfect. That's going to be a more of a commercial, full-on commercial lending, which they go to different guidelines and stuff like that.
And then how do you learn to recognize or find a good deal? I was going to touch on this a little bit, so I'm glad you brought it up. When it comes to being an investor, and again, this is kind of a little bit outside the realm of first-time buyer, but it's good information nonetheless. Our investors are payment driven because they need to make sure that the rents are covering their mortgage. And so typically, we're running comparables as an agent. We're running rental comparables and we're running sales comparables. And so if there's a property that one of my investors is interested in, we'll figure out what purchase price we need to buy the property at in order for it to make sense from an investor level. And of course, there's things that you can do like, buying the ugly house, buying something that's not as cosmetic will always yield a better deal than buying something that's remodeled. Looking for desperate sellers. So sellers that have recently gone back on the market after falling out of contract, they get nervous, they get panicked. A lot of times they'll give the home away for less than they should. We just had that actually in this market, the past 3 deals that I've had. The first one, we got $15,000 off the price. The second one, we got $25,000, and the third, we got $30,000. So there are sellers that are willing to take a little bit of a loss to get their home sold because it's an emotional process, right? We're dealing with people. So those are a couple of ideas, but we'll get into that more, and we can chat one-on-one too about how you can look for a deal. Okay. Probate homes. I just went through a probate sale. Do you have any specifics on that, Ben? Probate homes, you have less buyer competition because it scares buyers. So it's typically not something to be too afraid of. You just have to be okay with losing the home. A probate house has to go through the court system, and they have to give heirs the opportunity to step in and take the house if an heir wants to come claim it. So does that always happen? No. Does it sometimes happen? Yeah, it sometimes does. Oh, how you find out about them? We have a search function. So in our MLS, MLS is like our version of Zillow. It's where Zillow gets all of its information. So we can set up a search for probate or special conditions properties in our MLS. Okay, for a 4-plex, can you still qualify for a first-time home buyer loan?
So Juan, this is awesome. So yeah, so typically, so this has actually just changed, but for a 4-plex is before I would always take my borrowers with an FHA loan, right? So it's a government backed, but the reason is it would only require 3.5% down, right? So what happens when you start jumping up into duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes is the purchase prices are much higher, right? So at least on a 4-plex, you can go 3.5% down. I would originally want to go conventional, but if you want on a quadplex, I think they wanted 25% down. It was something crazy, but they just changed that guideline to 5% down. So yes, so as a first-time home buyer, can you buy the duplex multifamily home? Absolutely.
What is the agent's job? Isaiah, I just open doors. That's all I do. I'm just kidding. The agent does a lot more than open doors. So it's our responsibility. We help you find deals. And we just do a lot of the navigating of what's a good deal and how to protect you as the buyer. We are meant to be your advocate. And so we're negotiating the contract. We're doing all of the collaboration with the other agent. So I never talk, if I'm representing the buyer, I never talk to the seller, and I'm just communicating with the seller's agent. And then I also stay really on top of what our market's doing. So it just kind of depends like what functionality you want the agent to have throughout the process. Those are all kind of the basics. We do all of the setting you up on a home search, taking you out to see homes, writing the contract, negotiating the offer. But someone like myself, who I've got some experience working with investors, we can also get really dialed in to help you find deals in that way. Yeah, we're just kind of meant to be your advocate, your spokesperson, and make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of as the buyer. And of course, we have all the knowledge. Like, let's say we're in a home inspection and all of these different things pop up. Sometimes the buyers get really nervous about what comes up on the home inspection, but because we're educated in this and we've been to a lot of home inspections, you know, we know things that are major red flags. We know when to ask for certain things and so on and so forth. Good question. I'm glad that I could tell people that I don't just open the door.
I'm here for the lockbox.
Yeah, I'm here for I just have the special key that gets us into the house and the security check. Ben, yes, sometimes probate can be a lengthy process. So this recent one that I just did was a 2-month process. It just depends where they are at in the probate process and when they decide to list it. So if they've already been through some court hearings, that process can be expedited. If it's from the very beginning, it's a lot longer. It can be a 4 to 6 month process. So, and I'll ask those again, that's my job. I ask those questions. I call the agent, I get the inside scoop, so we know if it's something that you really want to wait around for or not. Okay. So say I get an investment property with 20 to 25% down payment. How long would you recommend before I search for a second home? Will I still need to do a 20 to 25% down payment?
Great. So let's just say, to answer the first one. So if you buy an investment property, 20, 25% down, let's just say you close, as long, again, you are going to have to qualify. So even with investment properties, that DTI comes into play. So we still want to make sure your DTI flushes. And if it does, you could literally go and buy another investment property the next month. So you could go back to back as long as an investment. Where it gets now funky is just kind of just side note, but if you wanted to buy a primary, so if you bought it as a primary residence and you wanted to go buy another primary residence, you got to wait a year. But when it comes to investment, as long as you qualify, you can just keep going back to back to back to back.
No. Awesome questions, you guys. Anything else? You can ask anything. There's no stupid questions, I promise. I didn't know what equity was when I first got licensed, and that's, for a real estate agent, that's a pretty basic thing that I should have known.
And that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build some equity.
Trying to build some equity. Equity is what you own in the home, the money that you own in the home, in case you guys missed that. Now you know more than I did. You can be a real estate agent. Okay. Oh, so if I have investment properties, how would that affect my first actual home?
So great question. So if you own an investment property, so you own a house now, right? So unfortunately, you in a sense wouldn't qualify for a first-time home buyer. Which, what's the benefit of the first-time home buyer is you get to put the least amount down, 3%. There's some other things that can help with MI and stuff like that. In this case, the next minimum would be 5% down. So it wouldn't be the end of the world. So it just, I mean, you have to come to the table a little bit more, but you're still gonna, depending on your credit score, all that stuff, you'll still get attractive rates and all that stuff being your primary resident. So that's the only way it kind of hinder you, but you could own 3 investment properties and then go buy your first primary if you wanted.
Any other questions? You guys are awesome. I love it. I love it. Oh, Isai says still at 5% to what you were just speaking on.
5% for the primary. Yep. So if you own an investment and then wanted to go buy your own home for yourself, it'd be 5%. Yep.
Okay. What would be the difference in cost between buying a primary property and buying a property that is not a primary? And how would you describe it?
And sorry, not sure. Also, how? Okay, so my bad, Ben. Read that one more time.
So just to simplify that a little bit, primary residence versus investment properties. There is second home is also a thing, but I think that you're speaking to primary. investment.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
let's just throw them all down there and kind of maybe just educate it. So guys, primary residence is you're going to live in it. What they want by book is 12 months. You're going to live in that house for 12 months. Then if we talk about now a second home, so technically just kind of location wise. So if I'm here in Phoenix, I'm living in my primary residence. Now I want to buy a second home. So second home has to be a pretty far distance. I think guidelines, they want it to be over 150 miles. So I could own actual second home in Flagstaff. Now the minimum payment on that would only be 10%. Where investment, now if we're talking, let's just say I'm in my primary residence right now, and I want to buy my neighbor's house, that's going to be an investment. So that would require 20 to 25% down. Now, side note, we talked about home stacking. Another one I like is called home hacking. So let's say, Ben, hopefully this is maybe sparks some ideas in you, but like my wife and I live in our primary residence right now. We live in it for 12 months. And this time we're saving up money for our next down. What's great is I've lived this in for 12 months. I can go buy another primary residence in my area down the street because I've lived here for 12 months. And now I can just go put 5% down. So again, you can start stacking around it.
Yeah. And to answer the second part, just describing equity a little bit more in depth. So equity is the money that you own in a home. So Dakota talked a little bit about principal and interest. Equity is what you pay in principal. The interest, so if the lender is going to be giving you money, they need to be making money off of the fact that they're giving you money. So that's where the interest comes in that. So you don't own the interest that you pay into your mortgage, but you do own the principal. And so if you were to sell your home, all of the principal that you've paid into that is your money. And again, that's the benefit of owning versus renting, because when you rent, all that money goes to your landlord. You never see a dime of that back.
Great. And also to make it number wise, hopefully just keeping it super, super simple. There's more that goes into this, but let's just say your house is worth $300,000 and you only owe on your loan is only $200,000. That difference is your equity. So that $100,000 is equity you have. That's money. If you were to sell, there's fees and stuff that come out, but truly is you would have $100,000. That's your equity.
And on top of that, of course, if real estate is appreciating, let's say that your $500,000 house becomes $550,000. All of that $50,000 extra is free equity. That's the beautiful thing about real estate. So it really is like a second bank account. You put money in and you can watch it grow if the market conditions are right. And if the market isn't appreciating, you just wait to sell until you're back on that appreciation gain. Do you think it'd be more beneficial? This is a good question. Do you think it'd be more beneficial to buy a first primary residence and then rent it out after a year? It is going to depend on your game plan, Isai, but that is what I would do. Just because you are taking advantage of either first-time home buyer or a lower down payment amount. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Dakota? Any thoughts on that?
Again, you kind of nailed it. So everyone's situation is different. Your game plan is different. For me personally, my age, where I'm at, I would be doing that. And the reason for it is I'm going to get least out of pocket. I'm going to get the most reasonable rate being a primary residence. And you also got to remember everyone's goal is different. So hopefully being like that, truly, if I'm buying an investment property, I realistically wouldn't be shooting for cash flow. I'm going to be shooting for to make sure everything's covered. So that, again, coming back to equity, you know, we're doing the American dream, but someone is in a sense paying that mortgage so that eventually I have a free and clear house. And then I'd go and buy it again. So I would repeat over and over and over because then I'm less cash out of pocket. Yeah. And
Isai, we can talk about that more in depth too. I love to get financial advisors, financial planners involved with this, just because their job is to look at your financial situation and see what would make the most sense for you. If you are getting a killer rent, like a really low rent, it might make sense for you to buy an investment. And so you're not having to pay such a large amount in rent or for mortgage or whatever else. And yes, Ben, exactly like a bank deposit on what you paid on the house. It's a good way to look at it. Okay, Jess. When you talked about CIA, you mentioned that one of the things discussed is how long you have been in your current job. How does that impact the process of buying?
Yeah, just got a great question. So I'm just gonna go basics, but in general, they want a 2-year work history, not at the same place, but you need to be at least employed for 2 years. Different things apply. If you were in college and then went into, into the workforce, they count that as work history, but you want 2-year history. Truly, like, let's just say I was at a place for 4 years and then I just moved jobs 4 months ago, and it's in the same field. They're totally okay with it. They're like, go, they're going to take your income and rock and roll with it. However, if you're going scenario, I'm going from, I'm trying to think of something. I went from being a plumber and then I jumped into car sales. They're going to want at least a little bit of a history, 30 days to make sure you're liking it and to make sure you're still making pretty good money at it as well. So, yeah, so length on job, like literally I've had people, I don't recommend this, but if they literally transitioned jobs while we're closing, but it was the same exact position, different company, and still salaried. So that all kind of comes into play. I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Just sending everyone a chat. We'll answer this last question and then we're going to do the giveaway. I know we're at the top of the hour, or I guess it's the bottom of the hour. I don't know how to talk. We'll answer this last question. We'll do the giveaway, and anyone who wants to stay and ask questions, we are happy to stay and answer questions. So I'm a traveler, never at one place for more than 4 to 6 months. What would then be a way to hold on to a house for a whole year as a primary residence?
Okay. So that's a great one. So as a traveler, so the biggest thing we're going to look at is your income. So as a traveler, right? So are you W-2 and you can work remote wherever you want? That, that's going to help. If you own your own business, things like that. The tough thing is where am I at? So 4 to 6 months. So it just really depends. So if you're there and they, for 6 months, like if you have someone from your employer saying you're going to be there, you're working there, but all of a sudden they end up moving you, that's a tough one. I'm going to ask an underwriter on that just 100% because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. But I think you would be able to at least get one primary for sure. So let me do some research on that. I know Makenzie has your information. I'll make sure I email it and get everything over to you on the correct answer.
And don't feel bad for having questions, Isai. I'm glad that you have them. Let's pop in. We're going to do our giveaway really quick. We've got 4 gift cards to give away just to say thanks for being here. Okay, let me share my screen again here. All right, my friends, like I said, feel free to stay and ask some more questions if you have them. If not, thank you so much for coming tonight, for getting excited about investing in the American dream and investing in yourself and your future. And we'll chat with you soon. I will be sending out, I've got a first-time home buyers guide that I'll be sending out via email, along with like a 10 email series. So it'll just give you some good follow-up. We do have a recording of this. I'll have to record the first half because I forgot to hit record. So we'll do that. And once I get that all put together, we'll send that out as well so that you can reference their recording. Dakota and I both work by referral. So if you know anyone who is looking to buy or sell, please let us know. Like I said, it doesn't have to be in one of the states that we service. It helps us out regardless. We can send them to our partner agents, and we appreciate you guys. So
yes, thank you so much.